Hi everyone, thank you for joining. Before we begin, please do react or let us know in the chat if you can hear me clearly. Perfect, thanks for responding. Today we are going to explore Zoho RPA and see how it complements your customers' existing Zoho implementations. Let me quickly introduce ourselves. I'm Maya, content marketer for Zoho RPA. My role is to automate complex automation concepts into practical business value. Today, I'll take you through Zoho RPA and the opportunities it creates for your customers. Joining me is Sriram, lead application support and product expert for Zoho RPA. He works closely with customers and partners to design and deploy automation solutions. And today, later in this session, he'll walk you through a live demonstration of the product. Welcome, Sriram.
Thank you, Maya.
Yes, thank you, Sriram. And here is what we'll cover today. We'll first understand what Zoho RPA is. Then we'll look at where it delivers the most value. Then I'll take you through some of the automation examples, followed by a live demonstration. And towards the end, we'll open this session up for questions. Let's start by looking at why these tasks continue to exist in organizations today. Despite having a lot of modern applications, employees are still spending hours doing repetitive manual work. Say, for example, tasks like extracting data from multiple files, downloading files like thousands of files at a stretch, and filling in forms manually by copying and pasting them. All these tasks are simple. They don't even require any of your cognitive skills to be completed. But when performed at a big scale, they can quickly become repetitive and take up a big chunk of your productive hours. And this is not all. On top of all this, where do you think these manual actions or any actions will usually take place? Definitely not within a single application, right? Yes. Most business processes involve at least 3 or 4 different applications. Some processes will rely on modern cloud applications that will provide API, making the integration relatively straightforward. On the other hand, there are also processes that rely on legacy systems like traditional ERPs, Windows applications, Excel trackers, scanned handwritten PDFs, and government websites that do not provide any APIs. But even in these scenarios, the processes can still move forward, but only with a human in the loop. Here, the human will have to act as the integration layer, manually moving data between systems. And here comes the question. Then how do we even automate across apps that were never built to be connected? This is where Zoho RPA comes into the picture. Zoho RPA is a software bot that can mimic user interactions. If a user can click it, type it, copy it, or perform any UI interaction with your screen, then the RPA bot can exactly replicate all these actions just like how a human will do. So instead of relying solely on APIs only, Zoho RPA bots can automate the user interface itself. And this is why Zoho RPA is considered as an automation hub also. This is because Zoho RPA will enable these legacy systems to interact with each other and among applications through UI automations. And here is one of the easiest way to build that UI automation workflows, and that is by using RPA Recorder. And here in Zoho RPA, we have a feature called RPA Recorder. With this feature, you can perform your process once so that the RPA bot can capture every step, every navigation, every mouse click, and every keystroke. Then converts all these captured actions into a workflow. Now, all you have to do is make a few minimal edits to this so that this can match your requirements. And just like that, your workflow is now production ready. After discussing all this, you might now have a question. Where should partners consider Zoho RPA for their customers? So whenever you come across a rule-based repetitive process that involves multiple applications, especially when those systems don't provide any APIs, then Zoho RPA is a strong candidate for automation. Now that we have already discussed where Zoho RPA fits for customers, now we'll see what that means for you as a partner. As most of the businesses involve repetitive actions in one form or another, having RPA in your automation toolkit will help you unlock new opportunities like automating desktop applications and automating across applications and help you grow customer engagements. And with this Zoho RPA, you can also extend your existing Zoho implementations by automating the process that happened before, after, or outside Zoho applications. And adding on top of that, you can also ensure an end-to-end automation service without requiring customers to undergo another complex implementation or onboarding process. Now let us see how our partners are implementing this for their customers. Here is one of our trusted partners, Code Lattice. They are helping their customers in automating complex business processes using Zoho RPA. And here is a scenario from their healthcare customer. Let's say the hospital was taking around 40 days to complete its insurance claim settlement process. This was because they had to reconcile patient data across the portals like hospital ERPs and insurance portal. However, much of this patient data was trapped within documents such as claim forms, medical invoices, and discharge summaries. But this was the case before the launch of Zoho RPA's new feature called Intelligent Document Processing. Now with IDP, customers are using AI-powered prompts to extract patient data from documents, and that too with high accuracy rate. Once the information is digitized, they will then use UI automation to validate and reconcile the information across applications, significantly speeding up the claim settlement process. And based on this experience with their customer, here is what Code Lattice had to tell about their experience with Zoho RPA. They have highlighted that with Zoho RPA's cross-platform automation, UI capabilities, and AI-powered workflows, they have increased their accuracy rate to 90%. Now let's look at a few everyday automation scenarios that organizations can implement using Zoho RPA. Now let's take a procurement scenario. Here, an employee raises a request to purchase a product. Before placing that order, the procurement team will have to compare supplier prices to get the best deal. Now let us see how Zoho RPA is helping them automate this particular process. Here, an employee is filling in their procurement request form in their procurement portal by filling in all their product requirements. They are also adding the quantity specifications for each product. And then they are submitting this request. Once this procurement request is received, the Zoho RPA bot will automatically initiate the code generation process. This bot will open an Excel sheet where this code generation process is going to take place. And it also made note of all the details that were shared through the request. Now the bot is then opening the first vendor portal. And here, if you see, the text is saying that Chrome is being controlled by an automated test software. And that means all of this entire code generation process is being handled by an RPA bot without any human intervention. Now coming back to this vendor portal, the bot is going through this site just like how a user will. And they are extracting the price details and updating the price details here in this Excel sheet. Now the bot will repeat the same set of processes for the next vendor portal as well. It is going through the site, extracting the data and updating it here in this Excel sheet. Now your Excel sheet with all the code across supplier portals are ready to be compared and ready for further processing. So with Zoho RPA, in short, the procurement team can automatically generate a code as soon as a request is raised. Finally, let's look at an important IT process. Let's say a IT admin is responsible of having backups every day and store them securely for compliance and disaster recovery. Let's see how Zoho RPA automates this routine task. Here, on behalf of an IT admin, the Zoho RPA bot will log into the customer portal. It is logging into the customer portal right now, where the customer is handling and managing all their business applications. Here, the applications are like sales application, supplier portal application, PO and invoice management application. Then the RPA bot will click on this UI button called download. Click on this particular UI button and it will download all the data backups from each application to the local storage. Once done, the RPA bot will open the work drive and it will upload the downloaded backed up file into this work drive folder. It will also include the date of that particular day here in this folder name. And the RPA bot is now repeating this same process across all the applications. It is uploading each and every backed up file here in this cloud storage. Yeah. Now here in this process, if you see with Zoho RPA, the IT administrators can back up data from all their applications on a daily basis without the need for reminders or any manual interventions. Now we have already explored the possibilities. Now let's see how Zoho RPA can bring them to life. Now I would like to invite Sriram to demonstrate the product and share insights from his expertise. Over to you, Sriram.
Thank you so much, Maya. So, hello everyone. Myself Sriram and I'm from Zoho RPA support. So, today in this webinar session, I'll be taking the demo on how we can extract information from a document, like be it any document, make a decision out of it, and then do the action accordingly. So I could see that few partners have use cases related to finance and accounting, and a few are exploring the opportunities. But I hope you would have seen the videos that was showed by Maya during her demo session with regards to different sectors. But I would like to tell you this. So where can RPA be used? So generally, RPA can be used in a platform where if it doesn't support any integration or APIs, or that cannot be connected to another system through its API configurations, or if it doesn't have any middleware concepts like Zoho Flow or Zapier or Integromat. So, and if it completely relies on manual workforce to scrap data from one website or one Windows application software to another software, in some scenarios that should be a need for integration to integrate with cloud application and with the legacy systems, the Windows applications that you have installed in your Windows machine. So you wouldn't see the integrations so easily, like we can transfer the data from the cloud source to the desktop applications. So in that cases where the API doesn't support, we can use Zoho RPA, where it scraps the data from one source and put it into a different sources. And not only that, we can use file management, like within the the machine, in the local machine. If you'd like to do some unzips, or if you'd like to do some file migrations, or even if you'd like to upload the files to cloud softwares, you'll be able to use RPA for that document management purpose. So I would say not only the options that we listed today in that poll, RPA will can be fit into any product which really need, where if a manual work is being done, that can be replicated, and if it is a repetitive job, that can be replicated using Zoho RPA. So without any further delay, let me share my screen to start the demo session. So I hope you all can see my screen. Just hit a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Thank you so much. Right. So, well, our today's goal is something related to, as I said, it's related to HR, and candidate resume filtering process, where if any company schedules an interview for a particular role, so we get more resumes, we get more candidates, and it is time consuming, and we know, uh, from our perspective, it is very hard to screen, filter the resumes that should match that particular job role and the job description and the experience. And what if we get like hundreds of profiles for that particular role? So HR wouldn't be able to, screen all the resumes one by, it'll be very hard. Maybe it will take a month, or maybe like 3 weeks to, scan to filter each resume and upload that and schedule the interview. Now, this can be simplified within Zoho RPA using the bot automation. So where if we upload the file, or if we add the file in a particular machine, RPA grabs that particular CVs, go through each CVs, find the relevant match, and if that match, we have a scale for it, like from 1 to 10, and if that match happens, if the match is greater than or equals to 7, it goes and adds that particular candidate information by retrieving that information from the PDF itself into the recruitment portal, the online web form. We call it as online recruitment portal. So now we'll see how we can automate this. Right. So I hit create flow. So I hope, since you know today webinar is for partners, so I hope Zoho Flow. So the entire UI is actually uh, was built on top of Zoho Flow. So if you know Zoho Flow, then the UI UX would be quite similar. The only changes would be you have to use the RPA automation instead of app integration tasks. So let's go and create the flow. I'll just name this as resume screening automation. So for RPA to trigger and perform its task, it is necessary to install the agent in our machine. So be it Windows, or be it Mac, or be it Linux, we have to install the agent, and the agent have to be actively connected to the system. So if you could see here, I've connected my agent, which is active, and for RPA to run its task, the system should not be in shutdown, or it should not be in sleep mode. The agent has to be connected, and the system has to be turned on. Right. So I'm selecting the agent which I've installed in this machine. So now I hit create. So now it'll open the uh, task trigger section. So there are different types of triggers. So the first one is schedule based trigger. As the name implies, we have RPA automations can be triggered for that particular date, time, and the set frequency. So you can even trigger the task on everyday basis, every month, or every year, or just once. So while setting the frequency, it will start to trigger on that particular time, on that particular set frequency. So the next option is desktop events. So we have different types of desktop events. The first one is hotkey method. So RPA automations can be triggered by shortcut command keys. So you can have a predefined shortcut command, and while pressing those key combinations, RPA automations can be triggered, uh, at that particular key combinations. The next one is Windows process. So any process related to Windows actions like opening a file, running a command within the Windows machine, in a command prompt, or while closing the application. So that particular instances, you will be able to trigger the RPA automation tasks. The next one is the file and folder events. So in this demo, we're going to be creating the workflow based on the file and folder trigger, where the automations can be triggered when you copy or move a file from one location to another location. If you create a new file, or if you rename a file, or if you modify a particular file, or if you even delete the file, at that particular instance, you'll be able to trigger the automation task. And the final trigger is the webhook trigger. So I hope you all know about the webhook trigger. So it will have its unique URL, which will be generated, which you can copy, and you can invoke this webhook URL to start triggering this automation from any third party or even any other systems, softwares, which supports the API or webhook configuration, like inducing the webhooks. And while triggering this webhook call, you can also pass the payload values through JSON or form data, or through plain text. Now, one of the real use case we can say, like when a file, when a form is added, when a record is added in Zoho creator form, so we can use this webhook trigger to under forms on success workflow to trigger this automation task to read the data from Zoho creator. You can pass the payload values of form fields, and that can then, so this automation will go to a legacy system where Zoho creator cannot be integrated with that legacy systems where you're doing it manually. So RPA helps you to log into that desktop portal, add the information that was fetched from Zoho creator. Right, so let me create the flow under file and folder events. So when I add bulk resumes, like more than one resumes within that particular folder, it needs to start the process. So first we need to select the folder path where the file is going to be present. So I have this candidate. So this is the pending. So I have three different folders: pending, rejected candidates, selected candidates. So first, the file will be present in pending, you know, under pending folder. That's where the automation takes place from the backend. If it is selected, then it goes to selected candidates, and if it is rejected, then it goes to rejected candidates. So first, the file should be placed in pending. Right. The next one is we have to select the trigger for the file and not for the folder, because we don't have any subfolders. So for the file, and choose event. So these are all the instances where RPA task can be triggered. So you can use when a file is created, when a file is modified, renamed, and also when a file is deleted. So I'll go with created. So if you want to trigger this automation for a specific file, you can mention the file formats. And if you want to trigger for any particular name, you can look for the name along with the extensions. So since it's going to be the PDF files of all resumes, I'll go with any file. Right now, we have set the trigger type, and now we need to build the workflow. So now we are into the builder section. So now we can start to build the flow. Right, so you see the RPA actions are in the left panel. So you can just go and add the actions that you require. So now our first goal is to read the information from the resume and then act accordingly. So to read the data from a complex structures, like with the different templates, we can go with IDP automation task, which is intelligent document processing, and we call it as AI automation. So this helps to capture or retrieve data from any complex structured multi pages or complex table columns or even handwritten text, that it is capable of retrieving those informations. So let me drag this IDP automation task. So now we need to train this model inside this configuration. So let's go and add the file, which a sample file. So I'll go downloads. Maybe I'll use this resume. And to train this model, if you want to fetch all the informations from the PDF, you can go with entire PDF. Or if you want to get any relevant information, particular information, which is specific, so you can go with prompt based training. So now I have the prompt which is set ready. So this is the job description. So this is actually for the position for software developers. So we have the condition starting here: scale the resume file that matches the job description from 1 to 10. Carefully screen the resume. So carefully, we are telling the AI action to carefully monitor and screen the resume and give the rating from 1 to 10 based on the match. So if the response number is greater than or equals to 7, then the can we just get the candidate information like candidate name, email, and the phone number, along with the eligible. If it is eligible, then return the status as eligible. If not, then return it is not eligible, along with the candidate information, and also state the reason for why the candidate wouldn't be a good fit. So now I'll just copy this prompt and I'll paste it here. Oops. uh, yeah. What happened? um Let me do that again. So what happens if I paste it here? Let me copy this and based on the text prompt. um okay. For some reason it's not allowing me to paste the content here. Mhm. So let me get the content from here. Right, so I've pasted the comment and now I hit on. Okay, so here we need to select the file. I think I've selected that file. Let me select this again. Right, so now we'll just hit trigger. So now I've started to extract the text from the sample model file. So the training is happening at the back end, so where it fetches the information in the JSON format based on the text prompt. Right, here we go. So we have the information. So it gets it scans the PDF file and shows the result as score rating is 2. And also it also gives us the reason why the candidate would not be a good fit, and along with the candidate information. So now we have to mention the execution file path here for this to happen for this files that we're going to be adding in that particular folder. So now since the file path will be dynamic because we're going to be adding different files, so how can RPA recognize each files? Well, not to worry. So we have an option in the desktop events where it results the meta information of the files that we're going to be adding in the particular folder. One such information is the path, and we also have file names and other parameters. So we can just hit on path and we can refer this so that it will act dynamically. Now let us hit done. So now that we have created this IDP automation, next operation is to make a decision. So if the candidate is selected, if it is eligible, then we need to add that into the recruitment portal. So I'll go with decision based action, where if the status equals eligible, then I need to add this data into a web form. So now we have to add this data into the web form. So for that, we need to use web automation task to configure from in the if the condition matches. So I have the web form here, right? So instead of dragging and dropping the actions from here, I can literally save my time just by recording my actions, so that RPA will recognize the actions that we perform and it will create the workflow instantly. Now let me show you how that works. So we have this RPA recorder which supports for both web and Windows application. I'll show how this works. So once I start the web recorder, so it opens a fresh browser where I just paste the URL. Now you see a bar over here. It is a recording bar. So RPA is now capturing all your actions within the web application. So far we have performed one step, that is we have accessed this URL. Now we just have to go. You see the orange color highlighter. It means that RPA is sensing, and analyzing what element would this be. So now if I hover the mouse in this field, it says it's a set text action. So where it is an input field. All that we have to do is just to click so that it will record the operation. See here? That's it. So, and finally we have to click this button to upload the file from the local machine. And after uploading, we have to click confirm to submit the record. Now I stop the recording. You see, RPA has captured the actions that we performed. I just hit confirm and it will be added to the workflow. So now this should not be, it should be added to the condition if the person is eligible, then this should happen. So I just hit. So now we need to add the file before submitting the record. So to add the file, so we have an action called open dialog from the Windows General that helps you to upload any files from local machine to your web portal or even the desktop application. So I just add the file over here. So open file dialog and then it has to be converted to submit. Now to configure this, we need to go to that particular save file dialog. So we need to first highlight this open dialog box. So when I hover the mouse, you see an orange highlighter. So we need to do control and a mouse click to select this pop-up UI element. So now we have captured this UI element. The next one is we have to mention the file path, where the folder path where the file is going to be uploaded. So what is the source destination? From the documents, I have candidate resume, and from pending, the file is going to be uploaded. And the file name, since the file names will be dynamic, so I can directly go and add the name from the desktop event reference. So before this action, I can set a delay of 2.5 seconds, which is when after opening this pop-up, RPA should identify this pop-up and should make the action in order to select that particular file. And after the file is uploaded, it will take some time. So if the file size is large, if you have a large file size, then it will take some seconds to upload within the report. So we'll give like 5 seconds of delay for it to upload successfully. And post 5 seconds, it will click on submit. Now after this task, we need to transfer that file from pending folder, I mean within the local system, we have to transfer the file from pending folder to the shortlisted candidate folder. So to migrate that file, to move that file from the file folder events, we have an option called copy and move file folders. Just have to drag and drop the action over here. It has to be move, not copy. It is file, and the path of the file has to be mentioned over here. So again, I can directly go and use the path from the desktop event reference, and we have to mention the folder path where this file is going to be transferred. So under documents, I go to candidate resume, so shortlisted candidates. So in this folder, the file needs to be transferred. If the candidate profile is rejected, we need to transfer the file to. Now this comes into default action, where if the criteria is not met, then we move the file to the same path have to be mentioned, and now it has to be moved to rejected folder, rejected candidate folder. There you go. And we will also add a set variable to gather the information about the reason for the rejection, because uh, okay, we are sure like AI can do the job, but we cannot completely rely on the AI actions, so we need to manually review. And it is okay to go and check why the candidate resume was rejected by the AI action. So we can use, so once you can come to history and check the reason for the rejection. So I'll set the variable where it holds the reason for the rejection if the candidate you know score is below 7, if it doesn't matches the requirement. Right now we need to map the information from the AI automation to the the form fields. So I go to customer candidate name. So here we need to put the candidate name field reference from the AI action. Now, how you wonder how RPA can go and identify a particular web element? It is with this configuration. So RPA supports configuring CSS selectors, XPath, ID, name, and shadow DOM. Now, what are these? Let me show you. Say, for example, if you'd like to enter a particular value in this field, so we need to identify this field's UI element. So to get that UI element, we just need to open the console by right clicking on that particular element. And if I hover the mouse, so you see the highlighter, which means that this is the particular value for that to identify to get that particular element's UI selectors. Now, how can I get XPath values? So to get XPath values, you just have to right click on that particular console element, click copy, and then you have to click on copy full XPath. If you want to get CSS selectors, you can go with selector within the same frame. And if you want ID, so ID, search for ID attribute. If the ID is available, you can go with ID. So this is what been constructed here. So if you see ID, and ID value is the same what we look over there. And same way, you can also search for name if you find name, customer name. So when I go to this, so just have to check, yeah, name. Okay, the recording did not select the name. Even if you want name is also available. You can have name attribute as well. So if you'd like to do it manually, if you'd like to configure it manually, you can do in this way. So the reason for adding multiple indicators is that, even if the first configuration fail, it goes for next. If this fails, it goes for next. So likewise, so that is why we are adding more number of UI elements selected in the configuration in order to in order for RPA to identify that particular element without any issue. Right. So now we have input the value of customer name. So likewise, we have to do for all the other files. So customer number from a automation, phone number, email, email. So click the file upload, then it uploads, then it submits the data. Right. So let me assign it properly. So now I have completed the workflow. So let's go and trigger this task. So before adding the files, let me turn on this workflow. Right. So let me go to downloads. I have few resumes over here. I copy it. I go to documents, candidate resume, under pending. Let me paste that. And then, so now RPA will start to run at the backend, and it will process each document and will make the actions accordingly. You see here now the last file got transferred to the folder, and now you see Arjun's profile is shortlisted. That is why it is opening Zoho Creator. And finally, that shortlisted candidate resume PDF file will be transferred to the shortlisted profile. As you can see here now, you see the rejected candidates files are being transferred here, and the shortlisted candidate profile is transferred in this folder. Now let's go to RPA, go to history. So you can see the three automations has been performed in a loop, and where you can see the response, like it holds the reason for the rejection. You can just come here and view it, why RPA doesn't consider this as a valid candidate. So this is a valid one, so that's why it has added into the web form. The next one is, so it also states the reason. And not only for the HR onboarding, so I'd like to show you another a quick you know a live trigger of how we can extract the information from an attachment that we receive from an email. So basically, we have I think a few customers voted for the accountings and finance related operations. So where they receive purchase orders in email, where that purchase order data needs to be analyzed, and it should then be updated, or it should be added as a new purchase order in Zoho Books or in Zoho invoice model. So I have the Zoho Books and I have the purchase order, the existing purchase order. So what RPA does is that it goes to email inbox, and maybe I'll show this. So the ideal goal is to update the existing PO if the PO is available. So I need to update this notes field here. So if it is available, otherwise I have to create a new purchase order. So now let me trigger this task. So it opens the Outlook, where it just goes and opens the the mail, and downloads the attachment from the email. So now in the backend, you see IDP will be taken place, where it retrieves the information from the downloaded file, and then the file will hold the purchase order number, and we retrieve the information of purchase order number. So you see here, invoice number is the purchase order number, and name and the total amount to be for the invoice raised. So we then use custom function where we use Zoho Books API call to upsert, to make an upsert action. Like if the PO is already exist, update the existing record. If not, add a new purchase order. So now if I go here and if I refresh the screen, so you'd see the record will hold the updation. So we updated from custom function. Since the PO is already present, it just updated the existing PO order. So this integration can also be done. So email handling, attachment handling, email content handling can also be done through Zoho RPA. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thank you.
So attendees, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop that in this Q&A section. We do have one question here. I'll project it now.
Do RPA agents adhere to the permissions of user account under which they are created, assuming it cannot bypass the user's assigned permission? Do RPA agents adheres to the permissions of user account? Well, can you please elaborate, Gurpreet? In what basis uh, do you want to check if RPA adheres to the user control? Because RPA will do the job what is being preset. So if that automation, if there is any intervention in that automation, RPA will stop working. So do RPA agents adheres to the permission of the user account under which they are created, assuming it cannot bypass the user's assigned permission? So basically, if you have logged into any, let's say you have a web application or a Windows application where you need to log in. So, and if you want RPA to run the automation after signing in, you can set up the sign in actions within Zoho RPA, so that we give permission for RPA to go and make the login. Otherwise, you can directly log into your application and you can start to trigger that, so that RPA will try to continue the operation post sign in. So we don't want that. If you don't want RPA to perform that login action or to recite passwords and username within the flow, then you don't want to make that action. So everything is predefined. It just follows the rule what we set, during creation of the workflow. Maybe you all can drop an email to support@zohorpa.com if you have if you need any clarifications, or if you need one-on-one session. I think Maya will talk about it. Maya.
Okay, before we wrap this session up, I would like to highlight on a complimentary automation assessment for your organization. You can just scan this QR code or use the link I have dropped in the QA chat. And our team will review your process and provide recommendations on the areas where RPA can help. So like Shriram said, if you have any questions, feel free to write to our support team. And if that is all, we'll wrap this session up. Thank you, attendees. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Shriram.